That's a trick.
Hello, there. First of all, it's my honor to be here. I'm very, very fortunate to, it's been a blessing for teaching. I taught for 45 years, and then I've done the last 5. I had 4 years before I even came to BGM. I was down at Tri-County for the first 2 years, through 72. And we were always talking about, God, the BGM up there, those guys are fast. That's when they were really good in their state, cross country and stuff. They were really good then. And then I moved 2 years out to Michigan and decided that I went 1 year by myself, came back, got married, and then went out 1 more year. And then Janine and I came back here. We thought, if we're going to take grief, we can do it a lot closer to home than 500 miles away. So applied for a wrestling job, became open junior high math, and everything worked out, at least for me. I think the first year I maybe, just like a lot of teachers do, they'll look and see about another thing, and then after that, I didn't. A lot of teachers say, well, wait until that last, you have a period where you got to turn your contract in. And so I got to the point then where I get my contract, sign it, and leave it in the office, and not even worry about coming back. So, wrestling, and you may not realize I have ADHD. If you weren't aware of that, you will be by the time my timer goes off. And I think we need to give a round of applause to the Malcolm Legion for the job they did, the food. I think more of us are going to go home stuffed than hungry. I don't know if any of you had to loosen the belt. You ladies are wearing maternity pants, that's a good deal for you. And if any of you guys have them on, okay. So it was just, I applied. I'm not a math major. Lyle is, but I enjoyed math. And it gave me a chance to apply for a head wrestling job, which I got. So it was really something. I'm just more or less going to talk about what we had. When we first started, we used to practice in the cafeteria at the high school. And, it was the biggest wrestling room we had until this now 60 by 75 foot room that we have. And we would be practicing while the people were going in buying their tickets and going into the basketball games. And we just didn't, we're just, okay, fine, good deal, you get to watch us practice. Every night, we'd have to fold up some tables and move them off to the side. We had these things that were called coffins, which were probably, if you take 42 divided by 3, what's that, Wyatt? About 13? 14, okay. That's how long these things were. We had these Reslite mats, which were not light at all. And it would take at least 6 wrestlers to lift one of these sections. And we'd have to roll up in the coffins, put the shop man, it was a good deal for the shop people, got to put them there, build it, and shove them back against the wall, and then do the same thing the next night. And I enjoyed that. When I was first there, I was very fortunate because we had guys that signed up that had no experience, but they had a tremendous attitude. I would take all of those guys back again, and if they had the setup we had now, it would be amazing. Lyle was on the first team, as was Paul Hauser. Paul, would you stand up, please? Paul, it was the first senior there. I didn't know. Paul moved in from Simcoe, so I don't know how many would like to leave high school your senior year and move to a new school that you didn't know. Probably not most of us, unless you were somebody who would be glad to get out and get any place because they didn't like you. But Paul was such a help. When you got everybody that didn't know what a referee's position was, much less how to get into it, you have a senior that's had these years. And so Paul was a real big help then. And not knowledgeable, but Bill Plants, who was the first district qualifier, missed by 1 match, going to state, and that's at 165, whatever the weight classes were back then. I don't know what they are, and they've changed so much, but I have a picture of him getting a win, and naturally I procrastinated, but when we do this again, it is over there. Comes up like this. Now put really big arms on that and you'll know what it was. It wasn't that. But Bill was a man. He was a man, and yeah, and so it kept me working a little bit. So I don't know. In fact, this whole family, well, they weren't all men, because there were some women, but the idea that all the guys that wrestled were hard work, and that's what you get in the small community here. You get a bunch of guys that got to work hard for that. So we did that for X number of years. That was a wrestling 40 by 40, because that's what the mat was. We would do tumbling in there, coming to my physical education stuff. We would build 3 people on the bottom, 2 people, and 1 up here, and then we'd run and dive over it and roll, which probably is against the law now. You know, everybody was happy to get into their own wrestling room. When Jack Gustafson started the push to get a new pool, you know, which is great, and I hope to keep it going. We don't have enough people using that pool. It is such a selling point for our school district. I don't think there's been a superintendent that didn't want to get rid of it. I know Wyatt would like to fill it in and make it a wrestling room. And I said, Wyatt, normally I'm going to stick with wrestling, but this would be, you and I are going to be on the opposite side of the, and which is not a good deal for me. But, so Jack said, yeah, you want to have a wrestling? You bet. Jack said, well, have it 40 by 40. I said, are you kidding me? That's great. What would we like to do then? Well, and then they started doing the figuring, and the room shrunk a little bit, got down to a 29 by 30. The only good thing for that was we didn't have as many wrestlers out as we would like to have had. But it gave the wrestlers their own place, own little pride, a little bit of being there. We could become more of a family, like all of you are now that have been either a parent of somebody or had your parents go. It's just something to be able to do as a family. And I know Mike Clayton knows kids that he was wrestling in kindergarten. And he knows that a lot of the kids that he beat also went on to wrestle for Iowa. So, you know, it's family. When you see a guy with a cauliflower ear, you pretty much know that, okay, you're either playing a water polo or you're a wrestler. And as a matter, here's another little ADH sideways. I went down to our son's down in Arizona, was in the airport, and saw a guy with one of the bags on. Cliff Keen, does anybody recognize what sport that might be associated with? Yeah, it was wrestling. And so, and this guy was kind of a studly looking guy. And we were going down the escalator and I said, hey, you a wrestler? He says, yeah. And I said, well, I knew the name Cliff Keen. And I said, where are you going? He said, well, I'm headed back. My folks live in Phoenix, but I wrestle at the Fort Dodge Central Community, Iowa Community College. He said, and I'm on a redshirt year this year and stuff. And so we talked, and it was just kind of neat to be able to see wrestlers and recognize them. After we, how much time do I have? Okay. And it's good. I was here for the foundation. Realize this or not, I'm the only head coach here that did not send somebody to state. And I'm a little more competitive than that. So, well, yeah, you did this, yeah, but nobody spends 2.5 hours in practice to go almost made it to state. Whew, so that's something that really, it humbles me. I'm just happy to see that foundation went, and every coach afterwards has improved the wrestling from what it was to now we have a 60 by 75 foot wrestling mat room. If you haven't, how many of you have not seen the new wrestling room down? Anybody not seen the new wrestling room? You need to see, it is something. And that shows, because there's not very many have, a lot, most of you have, and if you don't appreciate how fortunate we are, we go around to some of the other conference schools and you see that we are really fortunate. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad, but it's always been something. I enjoy helping other people. I'm willing, I'm still trying to talk to a couple guys that would, you know, they didn't, I didn't wrestle in elementary, I wrestled in 4th grade going to, I said, I want to help with you now. I said, I can't help you with freestyle, and definitely not with takedowns, because I can't bend my knees to get down like that, but some stuff, you don't want to do freestyle, this is stuff, because if you're not going on to college, then I think, you know, knowing a gut wrench is not going to do you any good in folk style wrestling. You're going to get DQ'd before the end of whatever the third one of these you put on, and you're going to be gone. So, anyway, that's, can you tell there's a digression? So, just everybody that has been here, I know I'll miss some special, you know, ones that, you know, Mike Clayton, everybody knows Mike. Who doesn't know Mike? The idea of somebody coming from BGM, getting to go to military academy school, being a coach at a shipbuilder's school, voted the outstanding rookie coach of the year in Division III, and is now up with Wrestling USA. I mean, is that so? I mean, we need to give Mike a big hand for what he's done for us. There's so many that you can go on, but you know, Mike came back. We're talking about how this is growing. Mike came back and was putting on little exhibitions. No, kind of. What? Okay. Anyway, Mike came back when not even everybody from BGM would come, you know, and then he did the Session 6, which has got a tremendous work. I want to buy another one of those just to see if I can help get my life in organization. But it came back to the fact then that last year we had, we had over 400 people there. We filled both competitive gyms. We had the little kids down in the wrestling room, and we had 100 girls up in the auxiliary gym. And all that started from Mike just coming back and giving back more than he'd ever taken. You know, he would he'd go home to his workouts after he worked out here. As a junior, he ended up writing down everything he ate and drank. So when he'd go practice, okay, the last time I did this, I lost 1.5 pounds over, I can do this. You know, and it's just, you know, amazing. And my lack of ability as a young coach, didn't realize, you know, that not knowing enough to help Ross McCombs, where's Ross over there, keep putting himself in the hospital for cutting weight. We didn't often have a 6 foot, 126 pounder. Ross, what was that? Still don't?
We still don't.
Okay, well it must have been height that you lost. But it was, you know, that was going, and Lee, I remember one thing on Lee, and I can remember a lot of it, but Lee was very successful in junior high. And one time he came up to me and said, you know, this is getting kind of boring, winning. And shortly thereafter, he lost his first match. And I said, how boring is that? So, that was probably the last time. You know, it's when you're having a lot of success and you go out there and being wiry and you're able to put the guys on the back really quickly. This is kind of boring. But it didn't take me long to realize I would much rather be bored than beaten. And so that was good that way. So, and all of the rest of you guys that I'm missing, I'd like to, with my three sons that could put up with a father like that to stick out the seasons. It was really good, and it was a lot of the pee-wee things. We didn't win first all the time, but we always had a good time going or coming, except for the one time we left Nathan in Williamsburg. That was...
He found his way home.
Oh, and one more last thing. I can't stand Mike Klaus. Do you stand? I can't stand. I can't stand Mike. Mike Klaus. So stand. I want everybody to see Mike. Would you go ahead? Mike, stand up too. Mike. That's how modest he is all the time. Anyway, he's the only state champion we've had. Went 50-0, I believe. 48 now. You can take that up with him. Anyway, Michael, and this is the last story, and then I'll call it quits. His junior year, Michael won first in the state, and that was back at the Veterans Auditorium. And those of you who are fortunate enough to experience a state wrestling meet at Veterans Auditorium, it is really something special. I mean, this new place we got is fantastic. Got good seats, but it doesn't have the charisma or the environment or the whatever. But so the HLV kids had never had a state qualifier there. And the shirts we had when Mike was 50, they were the wildest tie-dye t-shirt you ever had. I still have mine. And so back then, when a guy would wrestle, their followers would go around where they are going to match 6. So here we go, all BGM, and you see this covey of tie-dye t-shirts. They all go down there, and they were probably no farther from here to here than the mat, down here. That's what it was. So the referees really enjoyed that. Because they didn't get to miss a single comic. And so they would go, and when they lost, oh, I'm sorry, I'll go back here. Just a second.
I got your good side.
Okay. I turn around. So once they won, everybody go on to the next match. And pity the poor people that thought they got a good seat when they bought those bleachers because they could sit down and watch. No, you weren't going to see a thing except backhinds of a lot of people there. So that was a very good experience for the HLV people, and that was some of the best times when we were combined with HLV. We have a really good working relationship with them. We know a lot of people switch and go to church over there that live here and shop and so on and so forth. The second year, when Mike was a state champion, he'd beaten the guy that beat him before. And the thing I want to say about was I really enjoyed Mike's junior year because I was 51 when he was wrestling, and Mike had a lot of desire to do the best he could, and he always did. And the senior year, when he came up to 160, I didn't go a full match with Michael. I didn't want to because I didn't want to get beat by a 160-pound senior. So we never went that long, and I never gave him a chance to beat me. I'm pretty sure he could now. But anyway, I know I've gone way over, and thanks for doing it. And BGM and HLV has been fantastic. I would hope we would think about doing this again. I think somebody was going to mention that leave you got that? Okay, well, I'm not going to take this thunder, but okay, so thanks very much, and I appreciate it, and we'll come out next week.
Speaker. Dick has really helped in the background at so many levels in the sport of wrestling. He's a BGM alumnus, graduated in 84, was that correct? 83. 83. Went down to William Penn. I actually ended up crossing paths with Dick up at Cornell College where I wrestled. Dick was the assistant athletic director at the time, and he had kind of gotten into the sport of the concept of running wrestling tournaments because of Coach DeVries, Steve DeVries, legendary coach, wrestled at Iowa. And Dick has been on the NCAA wrestling committee He was on there for 5 years. He was the head of the D3 committee for 3 years. He helped put on the women's national tournament here in Cedar Rapids, where the Iowa Hawkeye women won their first national title. So that was really good to see as well. But Dick was going to come up here and share a couple words about kind of his experience in the sport and how it's kind of helped. So, Dick Simmons, everybody.
Thanks, White.
Yep.
Can everybody hear me? I'm terrible holding the mic, moving around, throwing around. So I'll use my athletic director voice. Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. Well, it's my honor to be asked to give the speech, except for Tony Stone. I think the only other person that never wrestled at BGM. When I was a young freshman back in '79, give them support. That's the wrestling family. The wrestling family, like I've said, take care of itself. Then a year later, I got the phone call 3 weeks before the Division III had canceled all their NCAA Winter Championships. I got a phone call 3 weeks by Mike Moyer, the president and CEO of the National Wrestling Coach Association. He said, "Dick, you think you can throw together a championship in 3 weeks?" And I'm like, "Well, we can see." And so we got it put together in 3 weeks down at the Extreme Arena in Coralville. We had over 300 wrestlers. We had to do COVID tests on everybody. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Everybody had to be COVID tested. We did over 3,000 COVID tests. All were negative, thankfully. And we presented and allowed these wrestlers to have a championship, to have finalized their season. And why did that happen? Because of the wrestling family. The wrestling family came together and volunteered and worked. Everybody volunteered that championship, and we pulled it off for the wrestlers. And then just kind of finally, the last one that really stood out to me was just a few weeks ago, back in March, beginning of March, we were hosting the Lower Midwest NCAA Regional Wrestling, and I was short table workers because it was on a Thursday, and we were really short table workers. I reached out to Wyatt and said, "Hey, anybody back home want to come and help the regional? We could use some help." Next thing I know, there's 6 guys showed up. Ray was there, Coach Reggie was there, Derek, Mr. I was going to say Horton, and I knew that was wrong. Showed up to help. And again, that was full circle for me that the BGM wrestling family sticks together and helped me out. So, it's just the thing I've been amazed with in my 20-some years of doing this is the wrestling family. It's you folks. It's Division I wrestling family. It's Division III. It's Division II. We take care of ourselves, and that's always impressed me. And one final thing I'd like to do, any of the coaches, I know we've acknowledged them, but anybody that's coached or is currently coaching here at BGM, stand up.
Or coaching at other schools as well.
Or other schools, exactly. From Corky Stuart way back in '74 to now, these are the individuals that are showing our young wrestlers the hard work, the dedication, and what it's like to be a wrestling family. And that's not an easy thing, the burden to carry, but it's an important one because I've said it many times tonight, and I always say it, there's nothing better than the wrestling family. Thank you.
Our last speaker here, Corky has brought him up. Dick had brought him up as well. I know anything I say is not going to do him justice, and he's a very, very humble individual. But Mike Clayton, BGM alumni, he's coached at every single level. He started giving back to the community, especially to the BGM community. He would come back from the East Coast, from Colorado, and he'd help us put on our summer wrestling camp. And there's been a couple pictures up here on the board of those first couple years where there was only about 20 of us in the room coming to this 1-2 day camp, and then it grew. Reggie also had a major part of that, finding clinicians and working with Mike to help that grow. Very appreciative of everything that Mike has done as a motivating factor, somebody to look up to, somebody to chase. to live your life by those same standards. So I'd like to invite Mike Clayton up to talk a little bit.
If we get a hand to Wyatt too for putting all this together. Pants don't fit. All right. If you got to go to the bathroom, I'm sorry. This is only going to take about 45 minutes. You should be in good shape. Man, first I got to do this. Because that's about the coolest thing I've seen in a long time. All right, good. So 2017 to 2019, I had a chance to work with Dan Gable. And he told me a story about Brooklyn, Iowa. He said, "You're from Brooklyn, Iowa, right?" I said, "Coach, I love Brooklyn, Iowa." He said, "I drove through there once." He said, "I was recruiting a kid and needed gas. Pulled off the interstate, started driving in." He said, "It looked like Switzerland. It was gorgeous. The rolling hills, this beautiful downtown, so quiet and beautiful." Pulled into Plant's gas station to fill up, and another connection to the BGM wrestling family. And he's standing at the gas station, they're filling the gas tank, and this woman comes down from the Catholic Church. And she's waving at him, and she goes, "I know you! I know you!" And he's like, "Okay, I'm Dan Gable, of course I'm going to talk wrestling." And so he's waiting for her to come up and start talking wrestling, and she said, "You're the minister of the church, and the doors are locked, and I need to get in the church." It's amazing how the sport of wrestling can humble us in more ways than one. My involvement, and I will cry so much tonight, so that's all right. My involvement in BGM wrestling started with my brother. 74, 75. He was on the first team. He was a sophomore in high school. My sister, Leanne, joined the team as what they called a mat maid back in 76 to 79, and I wrestled here from 86 to 90. That's tough. Wow. Okay, there we go. Game time. So, my brother's boys, Ben and Adam, also wrestled in the Pee Wee program in Brooklyn, and then they went on to North Carolina. Wrestled in high school there. Always active in the sport. Tougher than I thought it was. My brother Kenny taught me a lot about the sport over these years. Boy, this is good stuff. Thanks, Corky. Doggone it. My brother Kenny taught me a lot about the sport over the years. He taught me a lot about competition. And still today, I remember staying with him in the dorm at Des Moines Tech. He was up in college up there. And right before the Des Moines Tech tournament, I got to stay in the dorm with him that night, and that was a pretty cool experience. You get to stay with your big brother. Thanks, Kenny. I appreciate that. My mom showed up the next morning to that tournament, to weigh-ins, and they asked my mom if I was old enough to sign up. I was 4, and pretty much I think you had to be 5 to get in there. And never one to lie, my mom said, "Well, his birthday's today," which is true. It was my 4th birthday. I guess the rest is history. Over the next 15 years, my mom and I would drive over 50,000 miles in our car, big old built boat Lincoln Continental. Big enough that I could lay down in the back of the car, coming back from practices and competitions around the Midwest. And then about halfway through my sophomore year, had an opportunity to start training up in West Des Moines with Mike Land, who's a couple-time national champ for Iowa State. And so we'd go up there 2 to 3 nights a week after high school practice. Get a chance to train, spend a lot of time with my mom doing that. So, thanks, Mom. My sister made wrestling fun. You can see the robes. They used to be a little bit longer, I think. I don't know. Something weird, that high-cut robe going on. I don't know what that was. I don't remember those, but I remember the long robes. I remember the tights. And my sister used to dress me up. She'd put me in a robe, like all the high school wrestlers did back then. And sometimes Mom's bra would be my headgear because I didn't have one of those. And my sister let me win. taught me a love for this sport. She taught me a love for this sport, and she taught me how to appreciate winning. Right? Not that winning is defined by getting your hand raised, but there's a lot of other ways you can define winning in our sport. She taught me that, so thanks, Leanne. Then my dad. We watched a lot of videotapes. Doggone. My dad and I would watch tapes. We had Gene Mills, we had John Smith, and we had Pete Gallia. All of them that I would eventually get a chance to work with professionally in my career. My dad and I moved the couch out of the way, watching those tapes. And even though he lost 2/3 of his heart tissue to a heart attack when I was 8, he let me learn to drill on him so that I could feel those moves. Doggone. He's been gone a long time, he still gets you. So we'd watch those tapes and I'd break down the skills and develop strategies. So thanks, Dad. Now, the VHS tapes, the 3 VHS tapes that we had. Got those from program founder Corky Stuart. And I'm pretty sure they were not legally dubbed. But I wore those tapes out. And eventually had a chance to work with each of those coaches. And I shared the story of how I'd trained with those tapes. And that maybe Corky owed them $25 each for copyrights. And they all had the same statement. They said, it's great that you had access and that you were able to pick things up from the tapes. We're good. So Corky, I think we're okay about copyright infringement. I think we're all right there. Wrestling is a sport that prides itself on giving back. That's why everybody's here today. Wrestling at BGM set a path for me that I'm still on today. Working to positively influence the next generation of wrestling coaches and athletes in the same way that I learned from so many examples of the people in this room. I appreciate that and I love you for it. Wrestling helps us all better understand what it means to be intentional. And all the stakeholders in our wrestling community truly help to build our level of character. They nudge us, sometimes gently, most of the times not. And those nudges are designed to help us learn to handle life's challenges by practicing a thing called resilience through the struggles that we all face on and off the mats. Corky Stuart has helped to do that for all of us, and for me personally since I was 2 years old. Last night at Corky's house, Tony Stone mentioned that he saw my brother Kenny when I was about 2, and he heard Kenny ask Corky about my chances to be able to pick up the sport. I guess I was already on the mat rolling around. He said, I think Corky's told him, he said, I think he's good. I think he's going to pick it up. He's already on the mat rolling around. By ages 3 and 4, I was sitting in the bleachers with our neighbor Diane Smith, whose brother Kevin was on the team. And Kevin wrestled too, right? Yeah. Yep. And we'd sit there and we were commentators for all the high school guys back in the 70s. And we'd do the play-by-play, and that was pretty cool. And I think you realize that just by being around the sport provides us the opportunities to learn what the sport's about and the people that make it so great. Years later, junior high, high school, and I was in practice, and I tweaked my knee. And I was like, doggone. It wasn't quite the word I said. I won't say the word I said, but I saw Corky running up to me when I said that word. And I thought for sure he was going to take a look at my knee first, and that wasn't what Corky's style. He kind of ran up and he said, why did you choose that word? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. My knee's really sore right now. And he's just like, no, he said, you chose a word. Why did you say that? And he wouldn't let me. And I was like, I don't know. It just came out. And he said, next time, he said, choose a word. Pick the word chocolate or something. And he said, you can pick a word, right? You choose what you're going to say. I've been told the greatest gift of life the greatest gift is life. The second greatest gift we have is what we do with our choices. That reminds me of last night, Ed Klein was mentioning, talking about his grandkids, and we were at Corky's, and he said, to be able to have the love for somebody that you've never met, it's the greatest gift you can have. He was talking about his grandkids. And I found that when wrestling took me to Colorado and I met my wife and our daughter Abby. So I get it. So thank you for that reminder. Back to the knee, all right. In that moment, Corky said, I remember that you should use the word chocolate as opposed to the one I chose, and he said, it was as good as any other word. And I don't know how many athletes and coaches that I've had the chance to work with to this day, but each of them has learned something from Corky Stuart. Be intentional with your words and your actions. It's a lesson that I've carried since that knee, and I will carry with me the rest of my life, and I will continue to share that. Wrestling also has to be fun, and a part of that fun comes from learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Comfortable with things that most people will never become comfortable with. The challenge faced by our wrestling community is to recruit new members and then support each other through our struggles. We welcome others into our community, and we all, in our own ways, coach and mentor. The last 2 decades have seen enormous growth in women's wrestling, and our community is so proud of the opportunities that young women now get to have to be able to compete and learn these values through our sport. So to all the young ladies out here who have been in the sport, and all the women who are going to coach them or who are coaching them now, thank you, and continue to get involved, because these young women need role models who look like them and understand what they go through. Wrestling welcomes all who are willing to do the work. And as is apparent when we all get together, like tonight or last night at Corky's or this morning at the open mats in the new wrestling facility, that sense of our BGM wrestling community and the bonds that we've all built together continue to bring smiles and laughs to our faces and joy and pride to our hearts. I thought I was tougher than this, but I'm all right. All right, crying it out. And we faced our share of challenges as a program. I remember about the time I went to college, we were ready to cut BGM wrestling. I remember writing a letter to the BGM paper, the Brooklyn paper, to talk about what wrestling had done for me and for my family through our perspective. And as a community, we saved that program. Never forget that the benefits of any program have to outweigh the resistance. Things like financial costs, staffing and facility demands, and the positive or negative impacts that are influencing our student athletes throughout the community. A friend of mine, Jeff Davis, runs a company called the Good Athlete Project, and he said, it takes more than a passion, it takes a willingness to do the work. And boy, I bet if there's somebody in this room that doesn't know what kind of work goes into wrestling, you know that the passion can't be enough, because there's days when the passion just doesn't cut the mustard. You've got to be able to do the work. So what does wrestling look like in the next 50 years for BGM? And I think in many ways, it looks a lot like the past 50 years. It's going to take strong leaders. It's going to take committed alumni. And as Corky's taught us, it's going to take us being intentional with our actions. As alumni, we can help offset costs. We can show up to matches and reunions like the one that Wyatt's helped set up today. Can't thank him enough for that. And we clearly have an amazing group of men and women who are willing to continue that here at our community. And as leaders, we can help to support others who now do the work for us, the athletes, the coaches, and the support structure required from those in our school and in our community. I have confidence in this program's future, thanks to the leaders and those who are now doing the work. Thanks to those who have come before and laid the opportunities at our feet. Thanks to the 50-plus years of investment and the strong foundation laid by Corky Stuart and the countless others who have represented BGM over the decades. To continue the program, we must challenge ourselves and each other to be leaders of character, to support each other through the good and the challenges, and to be intentional with our choices as we do the work to continue the legacy of BGM wrestling for future generations. And to tag on to Corky's statement about not having a state qualifier, what's the number we've had of boys and girls so far?
50 boys and 3 girls.
And they all belong to Corky Stuart.